The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. By the time Gold reached Burn Tower, there were traces of battle all over the place, but not of the combatants. The stone steps leading up to the tower entrance flowed with still running waterfall trickles, and the surrounding earth was saturated with moisture. As Gold searched the ground with his gaze, he noticed a set of shoe prints in the newly soft mud, set widely apart, headed towards the western border of Ecruteak. Did Suicune win already? Gold wondered, bounding up the steps 2 at a time. I had to be only a minute or 2 behind that man. For a moment, the hideous fear seized him that the Tuxedo Man had actually managed to capture his prey, and he sped up, chastising himself for his indecision earlier. At the top of the steps, he paused for breath and looked about the burned ruins. The gaping hole in the center floor caught his eye, reminding him why Suicune had come in the first place. Still blowing hard from his sprint, Gold approached the hole to look down. Suicune? Are you... His body froze in sudden horror as his sight fell upon the pillar where Apollo was tied, where he had been tied. The rope hung limply, with a splash of blood at the bottom, but nothing more. Apollo was nowhere to be found. What? When did he... It was so utterly baffling that in the moment, Gold could not even conceive the word escape in his thoughts. The rocket executive had been hidden, tied, gagged, monitored, and guarded by Spirit's personal servant. Yet he was free. As Gold's mind reeled, he remembered the muddy footprints leading off to the west. Were they the Tuxedo Man's? Or Apollo's? Either way, Apollo could not have gotten far yet. Forgetting his weariness, Gold spun and hurried back out. A few civilians of Ecruteak were standing at the base of the steps, probably having shown up only just after Gold. A woman, who had been observing the waterfall down the stairs, spotted him and pointed.
There he is again! She called. What's going on? Why is Burn Tower soaked like this? Suicune was here!
Gold answered, leaping down the steps as fast as he dared without slipping.
But someone tried to catch it, and everything's gone wrong. I gotta go! Somebody tell Morty! He'll understand!
I don't know what it's safe to say aloud, he thought, as he reached the bottom and ducked between 2 astonished-looking boys. But there's no time now. Sorry, Morty. You may need to answer some hard questions while I'm away.
Someone tried to catch Suicune?
A young man echoed.
It must have been that fancily dressed guy. You seen?
Someone called his name.
Hey, where are you going?
Gold ignored the last call and picked up speed as the ground beneath his feet became firmer. The West Gatehouse was rapidly coming up in front of him, but he did not slow down until he had passed through the threshold. An elderly guard behind the desk sat up in wonder as he skidded to a halt.
Excuse me,
gasped Gold, jogging in place.
Did you see a man with injured hands come through here?
The guard's composure returned as he scratched his white beard in thought. When he spoke, it was in a hesitant manner, as if he wasn't sure what to say.
Injured hands, eh? Well, I don't know if I recall that, but there was a fella who passed by just a few minutes back. Surly fella by his looks. But he had both his arms crossed over his chest, so that his hands were tucked in his armpits. He seemed to be in a mighty hurry, not quite running, but close to it. You know him?
Not well, but more than I'd like to. Gold didn't say more, but renewed his pursuit as the baffled guard looked on. The footprints were Apollo's, not the Tuxedo Man's, and that was enough to know he was back on track. The grasslands of Route 38 stretched before him, where Apollo could be anywhere, either hiding or passing along as inconspicuously as a defenseless man with broken hands could hope to. If he kept his wits, he would know to keep out of the tall grass, where wild Magnemite and Raticate practically swarmed. Without his own Pokémon, Gold was hardly better off than Apollo, but at least it would allow him to better predict the path his enemy might take. What will I do if I find him? Gold wondered, as he slowed his pace and searched. That man is desperate. Now that I think about it, he probably crushed his already mangled hands to squeeze them out of his ropes. He's like Lance, focused, persistent, with an insanely high pain threshold. If I do catch up to him, what if he ends up kicking me down and strangling me with his legs? Gold shuddered. What a thought! Where did that come from? Despite his best attempts to focus on his search, the negative ideas reasserted themselves in his mind. Indeed, the further distance Gold put between himself and Ecruteak City, the more his doubts oppressed him. Once more, he cursed himself for acting without thinking, and he was almost convinced to turn around and get Lance. That was when he noticed the depression in the ground ahead of him. It might have evaded his eyes, if not for the fact that it was right on the border of where the grass grew exceptionally tall. From a distance away, the flattened grass merely appeared like a large animal had been sleeping there. A closer look, however, revealed that the ground had been so caved in on itself that it resembled a hole. It was like a giant child had pushed his thumb into the earth, as if it were made of soft clay. As Gold cautiously approached, he saw something lying in the pit. He came close enough to get a proper look, and abruptly turned away in horror and disgust.
I know you're there.
The voice came from right beside him. Gold wheeled around and nearly fell backward into the depression when he saw who it was. It had taken the humanoid form of Kamen, but its entire body was a translucent silver white. Except for the face, the torso was a bland mockery of humanity, a gingerbread man at best. Curiously, the thing with Kamen's face was not looking at Gold, but rather off to the side, in the direction of Ecruteak City.
There is no need for your intervention this time,
it said, in a voice that came from Kamen's mouth, but with an unfitting baritone.
I am wise to you. Give me leave to speak freely, for it is all I purpose to do.
The thing tilted its head, and seemed to be listening for an answer. Presently, it smiled, and only then did it turn to face Gold. The fact that it was clearly not human, but playing imitation to one, was enough to send a shudder down Gold's whole body.
You can relax,
it stated, its mouth moving slightly out of time to the words.
She is watching, albeit needlessly. This is a parley.
The smile grew mocking.
Dear me, I ought to be on my best behavior. She is very angry with me right now. Did I outwit her this time? Or did she let this happen so that I might do the dirty work? What do you think, Gold?
You...
Please.
The entity purred.
Call me Silver.